Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. On the show, we bring you expert advice on how to make and manage your money right, strategies related to innovation, to hiring, anything and everything that matters to the life of an entrepreneur. We cover it right here on the show. It's my privilege tonight to welcome one of the world's and India's most well-known entrepreneurs, inspiring her fellow entrepreneurs based on her personal journey, someone not needing much introduction. I want to welcome Kiran Mazumdar Shaw on the show tonight. Kiran, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. My first question is, as far as whether you are seeing, any signs of recovery. Do you think 2021 perhaps will be a better year for entrepreneurs? I would essentially like to get your message for entrepreneurs as we're starting tonight's interview.
So the way I look at it is that this particular pandemic has thrown up a large number of challenges. And I've always believed that challenges throw up opportunities, and therefore entrepreneurs are the beneficiaries of these kind of challenging times. So if you think about the new normal, what is the new normal? The new normal is a virtual world. The new normal is about services led businesses. The new normal is about working remotely. The new normal is online. The new normal is digital. The new normal is telehealth. There's so many new things that have suddenly evolved, and it almost seems like an idea whose time has come, because many of these things that we've talked about have always been concepts that of the future, but the future has arrived. And therefore, I think a lot of young entrepreneurs have suddenly found their calling. I know that many of these telehealth companies who are struggling to basically make their businesses work suddenly found that their businesses were thriving. Today, people want to know about how to manage COVID. People want to know how to manage their other diseases at home because they don't want to go to the hospital, or they find that today these telemedical consults are available and they help a lot. You know that a lot of the contactless services that have been provided by various delivery services agencies have become a big opportunity for small entrepreneurs. And then apart from that, I can tell you that there are so many entrepreneurs creating their own homegrown businesses, because that's how these times make it happen. So I think when you look at the adversities that we are facing and the opportunities that it has thrown up, I think this is a very important and exciting time for young entrepreneurs, especially those in the technology field. Now, if you think about the other aspects of this pandemic, today we know that even the kind of holidays we look at are very different to what we used to do in the past. Today, people are willing to, go by car, go to game reserves, go to hill stations, go to all these open places. And even the way, say, events are organized or weddings are organized, it's very, very different. So there's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs to innovate new spaces, new businesses, and new concepts. So I, for one, believe that entrepreneurs should not despair. This is an opportunity which they must make full use of. And as far as 2021 is concerned, I am sure that this model of businesses has come to stay, and therefore it will only be very successful for them to build on in terms of what they've done this year.
Okay, so I do want to talk then about a tweet that you've put out, a short while back, where you were talking about the opportunities as far as small businesses, entrepreneurs are concerned. You were speaking of the role of AI, saying even as testing, etc., is ramping up, AI and technology and automation will play a much larger role. So when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to technology, and really the middle ground between the two, what are the opportunities that exist for entrepreneurs? What would you like to tell them?
So one of the hot areas, as you are well aware of, is this whole space of healthcare and medical technology. And as you know, from diagnostics to vaccines to therapeutics, I think there are huge opportunities because of this pandemic. The focus and the spotlight has come on this particular sector. So when it comes to diagnostic tests, now you know that even if you get a simple, case of flu, you are going to test for various types of viruses. So you can imagine the kind of panel testing opportunities you have for viruses. It is not just about COVID, but you will also want to know as to what virus have I got? Is it a coronavirus? Is it a dengue virus? Is it a chikungunya virus? Is it a common flu? What is it that I have got? Is it H1N1? So you are going to have companies developing a large number of viral diagnostics based on panels where you can multiplex the data. I mean, there are lots of those kind of opportunities coming about. Then you have antibody tests, antigen tests. You know that today when you get vaccinated, you will want to know whether you've had an antibody response or not. And I'm sure that if you have a small test that is available to you as a home care test, you will take it. So these are the kind of opportunities in the diagnostics medcare world. And I'm really happy to see science coming to the fore, because a lot of scientists are now quickly developing and pivoting their businesses into developing these very important diagnostics for the future. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities of science driven innovation, and therefore that kind of entrepreneurial companies.
Sure.
So it's a very exciting time for our sector for sure, because so many new opportunities have been thrown up, and the world is not going to be the same. Whoever thought that vaccine companies will be the most sought after companies in the world? I mean, all these years they've just been taken for granted, but today they are our saviors.
In a recent interview, Kiran, you've spoken about the need for a national pandemic preparedness program. If through this interview you'd like to have, sort of like a wish list of sorts for the central government to say, this is what I think it should look like, this is what I think it should be, what really should that be? What sort of an outline or what sort of contours maybe would you like to see that have?
So there are three buckets of preparedness. The first, of course, to have a viral surveillance plan where you are constantly on the lookout for new viruses that could potentially be lethal in the way that coronavirus has been, and keep a tab on such viruses and contain them as soon as you see them. The second thing is, of course, to make sure that we have a pandemic preparedness when it comes to hospital infrastructure, because we've seen that in many of these cases, we've been overwhelmed. So I think this actually allows you to be prepared when a future pandemic hits us, in terms of how do you plan for having the adequate kind of resources and infrastructure if such a pandemic does hit us. One of the first things we have to do is to contain and quarantine. That's a very important strategy that we need to do in terms of pandemic preparedness. But when you see an outbreak, how are you going to deal with it in terms of its medical needs, and how are you going to deal with it in terms of containment and prevention of spread? And finally, of course, it means that if you do get such a pandemic in the future, how quickly can we develop a vaccine? I think this pandemic has actually been a eureka moment for all vaccine development, because we've seen that we've been able to take a vaccine from the lab to the market in less than 9 months. I think this is phenomenal, because it has never been done before. If it can be done in 9 months, then I think it is a huge victory for the human race, because it means that when the next pandemic strikes, we can actually do it very fast. And we could probably do it in even a shorter time than what we took now, which itself is a lightning speed. And once we understand how these vaccines are doing over time, then we'll get a lot of confidence to understand vaccine platforms and quickly be able to pivot these platforms for every viral attack.
I want to talk the big picture. If you had one piece of advice for those who are in the manufacturing space, just going back, Kiran, to our first question, talking about ramping up really of manufacturing, the revival really coming in, what would you like to tell them?
Well, I feel very confident now that we have visibility of a vaccine, because I think it is very important to start building herd immunity in communities so that we can really get back to working as usual. And I, for one, believe that by March, we should see good resilience and a bounce back of economic growth. So now that, if we hadn't seen vaccines coming out with the kind of data they have come out with, I would have still been a little hesitant to talk about economic revival in such a short time. But now that I'm seeing that access to vaccines is going to become a reality, I think we will start seeing a much faster paced economic revival, especially not only in the manufacturing sector, but also in the services sector. I actually believe that the travel industry is going to be a big beneficiary of the vaccine emergence, because I think now they will be in a much safer place to fly and operate in almost a state of normalcy. So I think by March, you should see business coming back to normal. And therefore, I believe that you will start seeing a good growth momentum picking up in FY22.
Okay, I'll have to take a very quick break at this point, but we'll come back with more on the other side. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow and Tonight, continuing our conversation with a global icon, Kiran Mazumdar Shaw. For an entrepreneur who's in the biotech space in 2021, if you'd want them to know anything about raising money, making money, managing that money, what do you want them to know?
Well, like I said, the whole world is now investing in biotech because they've seen that, it's not all about just high tech and digital tech. It's really about life tech, because today, without a diagnostic, without a vaccine, or without a therapeutic, you just can't do anything about the pandemic. I don't think any digital technology per se can just help you deal with the pandemic. For instance, okay, you can have a AI reading a scan to tell you that you've got a patch in the lung, but how do you deal with that patch in the lung is the question. So today, life technologies, biotech is going to be a very, very focused space. Today, you are suddenly seeing a lot more investment going into the space. The government also has realized that they need to strengthen the pharmaceutical and the biopharmaceutical industry. And I can tell you there's a lot of capital flow into this sector because the investors suddenly realize that this is the space they should be investing in for a healthier, more prosperous future.
I want to talk about the role of research. For an entrepreneur who's watching this interview, what would you like to tell them about the role that research plays when it comes to the pharma industry, when it comes to, biotech, because there's so much now focus really on that. My question to you is to try and understand for an entrepreneur who's watching this interview and wondering, but can I make money in that field? What would you like to tell them?
I think we should not trivialize research. I think we must understand that there are many types of research. So one is, of course, basic research, which I think needs a lot of attention and a lot of investment and a lot of focus. And I think I'm happy that this pandemic has brought in a lot of focus on basic understanding of disease and basic understanding at a molecular and cellular level of viral diseases. So I think basic research is going to be extremely important to start building a scientific ecosystem that entrepreneurs can actually leverage. And I think going beyond that, then of course, a lot of the biotech industry is research led. So to that effect, you basically leverage a lot of the basic research knowledge that is emanating from academic research labs, and then you take those into an idea and shape that idea into a product. So that's the opportunity that the biotech space has. So I'll give you an example. Today, if you want to develop a new rapid antigen test, it starts with understanding what is that antigen that you have to basically target in terms of the diagnostic. So, for instance, should it be the spike protein? Should it be the receptor binding domain part of the protein? There are lots of opportunities for you to develop a diagnostic based on your deeper understanding of how the coronavirus works. And then based on that, because all that happens in a basic academic research laboratory. But looking at that knowledge, you can then develop an idea saying, I'm going to develop an antigen-based diagnostic test because I feel receptor binding domain is a very specific domain that will measure neutralizing antibodies. And therefore, I will develop my test based on that. So you can actually develop a large number of tests based on your scientific understanding.
Okay, I want to take my last couple of questions, and one thing that I love discussing with you every time we have you here on the show, Kiran, is the art of giving back for entrepreneurs. Perhaps not enough is being said about that, or maybe there is a lot of conversation, but it's centered around too few areas. I was just looking at some headlines suggesting that we've seen a 175% increase as far as philanthropy for the year 2021, as far as big individuals, HNIs giving back to philanthropic causes are concerned in 2020. What would you really like to say about perhaps an entrepreneur who's saying, I would like to give back, I don't know what areas to be associated with, or attention is going to very select sectors, whether it's education, healthcare, etc. I would like to broaden really that scope. What perhaps through this interview would you like to tell them?
See, I think philanthropy is very personal, and you should be allowed to invest in whichever area you want to invest in, as long as it has a societal impact. If I want to invest in healthcare or education or maybe art and culture or whatever else I want to invest in, it's my prerogative. I don't think we should tell people where they should be investing, as long as they invest. I do think that wealth creators must make it something which they owe to society. I think it should be a commitment to society in terms of their philanthropic investment in their own communities and societies, because without wealth creation, you will not be able to actually do justice to societal improvement and societal augmentation.
My last two questions as we are winding down this interview, and the first is as far as doing business in the new normal is concerned. How have things changed according to you? What should an entrepreneur keep in mind when it comes to doing business in this new normal?
So I think one thing we must understand about the new normal is what is it that works well and what is it that doesn't work well. So I think there are lots of efficiencies that have also been made known to us because of this virtual world that we have created. And I for one know that the kind of focused meetings I have at short notice is something I could not have done in the past, because we are also used to having physical meetings. And when you have physical meetings, people have to assemble at a given venue, and not everyone is able to come. But on a virtual call like this, I think everybody is able to group very fast. And so your rapid response to any issue is very, very impressive and efficient. So that's the good part about the new normal. Of course, the new normal is also something which companies are adopting in terms of a business practice, because it is providing people the luxury or the options of working from home. And I think I, as a woman, know that it certainly suits a lot of women if they can be given a work-life balance by saying that, okay, you only need to come to the office maybe 4 days a week, but you can take the fifth day off. And if it's a 6 day working, then the fifth and sixth can be, work from home kind of models. And I know that this is making a big difference to people who need to spend some time at home. Moreover, I think this is also freeing up office spaces, and it's also creating new models of how to design offices which have these flexible kind of working hours. So I think those are sort of very interesting new modeling that is coming into practice, which is actually making companies more cost effective and more efficient in every sense of the word. But then on the other hand, we know that many things are required to bring back the human factor. You cannot run companies or businesses or even social interactions without face-to-face contact. So I think the need for having face-to-face contact and human interaction is becoming very well appreciated. And I think that is really the balance that we are trying to strike.
So when we talk about doing business, there's the role of skilling, there's the role of upskilling. What would you want an entrepreneur to really know? Any specific skill sets did you think are going to get called into play in this post-pandemic world, as things are really changing, Kiran?
Well, it's very obvious that you need digital skills in this new normal or this new environment that we have created. So actually being tech savvy is going to be very important. I also believe that, we are using technology in a very, very smart way. And I think, for instance, I think many of these digital technologies that we used to always think of as a futuristic technology has arrived. So whether it is digital payments, whether it is digital notifications to do any transaction, whether it is telehealth, whether it is accessing information. Now even when you vaccinate, I do believe that you need an electronic tag to make sure that you have a database that tells you, who received which vaccine. And the reason you need to do that is because we have so many vaccines with very limited information about the vaccine. So as the information gets known over time, you need to know who received which vaccine, so that if one vaccine is not as good and another vaccine is very good, then you know that this person who received the suboptimal vaccine needs to be vaccinated again. So, you need that kind of information, which again needs a digital tag.
All right, Kiran Shaw, such a pleasure having you here on the show tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Completely out of time on this episode. If you have any feedback for us, our details are coming up on your screens. Do let us know what you thought of tonight's interview, and if you have any thoughts, any feedback for us. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.